going there shortly, but already tonight we have seen a performance that has raised many questions about the Colombians in this championship. Colombia have beaten Ecuador by 1-0. Here's the goal for them that won the game for them. Injury time in the first half, and it was Freddy Rincon, a big-name player, one of several big-name players in this Colombian lineup, whipping it home. It was a good move, and they'd created several chances through the first half, and they were just beginning to struggle as to hitting the back of the net. But that goal was enough to give them the victory. Carlos Valderrama laying it on there, and Rincon hits the target for the first time in 13 months as an international player, so no wonder the Birdman was delighted. Now briefly perhaps, but Colombia have just gone top of this group. The 4 points you'd think is going to be enough for them to qualify, but Brazil and Peru, as we've just seen, are about to play the second game of their group series, so the table will certainly take on a different look in about an hour and a half from now once more. Both Phil Thompson and Frank Stapleton watched it with me. Frank, 4 points enough then, do you think?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, them and Brazil are the favourites to go through. But I think that the big question marks again about the Colombians' attitude towards it. They went through the motions second half. It was quite boring to watch. But, you know, you just think they've got a bit more to give. Well, they're never ever going to be pushed. I think they're just happy enough to get to a certain stage of a competition, and they feel, well, that's as far as we'll go. And they've got no real killer instinct in that team. And that's why I don't think they're ever going to be winners in anything.
Phil, do you go along with that?
Yeah, I don't think you can go far wrong on what Frank just said. You wonder coming into this tournament, playing every 2 years, whether it's of any great interest to the likes of Colombia. They have had the problems. You wonder what kind, if they've obviously heard about the player dying in Colombia, if that's affected them tonight, because they really didn't seem as though one or two players had a go. But they were very, very disappointing, just as we've seen in the World Cup.
Just a quick thought before we have to go live to Rivera once more, though. At least they're getting the results. It means they're still in the competition, and they have the quality of player who, if he decides to turn it on, can upset.
Yeah. I think the 4 points will guarantee them going through. If they don't sort of finish second place, they'll obviously, with their 4 points, still look as though they'll go through.
OK, thanks very much to the two chaps. We'll hear more from Frank and Phil in just a moment or two, but Brazil against Peru now, live from Rivera. The history of meetings in the Copa America, 12 in total. Peru have just beaten Brazil the 2 times. Brazil have won 7 with 3 draws. Match betting for this game, Brazil odds-on favourites, 2.5 to 1 on. The draw at 5 to 2, and Peru even bigger outsiders than were Ecuador earlier tonight. Peru 7 to 1 against. This is the scene. The Brazilian fans are beginning to make some noise, and we'll hear now from our commentary team, Trevor Francis, and first it'll be Martin Tyler.
Thank you, Paul. Brazil satisfied with their result against Ecuador, but not particularly pleased with their performance. They make just one change, though. The number 21, Savio, made quite an impression when he came on as a substitute, and Savio starts tonight in place of Tulio. The rest of the team unaltered, with the goalkeeping duties still with Dida, who certainly wasn't expected to take a prominent part in this tournament. Peru used 3 substitutes against Colombia in that creditable 1-1 draw, and they all start tonight. Percy Olivares, the number 4, Herman Penillos, number 11, and number 19, Herman Carti. Roberto Palacios scored that stunning equaliser against the Colombians. Jose Del Solar looked a class act in midfield. Remember, he earns his living in Spain with Tenerife. And all in all, Trevor, Peru did pretty well against Colombia.
Yes, it was a spectacular goal that got them the equaliser, but I think overall they certainly deserved the point. But I think that tonight it's obviously a tough obstacle trying to overcome this Brazilian side. Although Brazil won at their best in the opening game, I do feel that they're a little bit victims of their own success, because at the moment it appears that it's not just enough for them to win. They have to try and win with a little bit of style, a little bit of flair that we've come to associate with the great Brazilian teams.
Well, if you talk to many Brazilian supporters, they will even tell you that they don't want Mario Zagallo as the coach. For all that Zagallo has achieved, Tele Santana is still the popular choice, a former Brazilian national coach, of course. But tonight, Zagallo equals the all-time record. He is coaching Brazil in charge of an official international for the 74th time, equaling the mark set by Faiola in the 50s and 60s.
I don't know about the fans not wanting Zagallo. I think also a certain Mr. Romario would endorse those comments. He doesn't seem to see eye to eye with Zagallo at all, and I'm one that's very disappointed that he's not playing here tonight. I think he's one of the world's outstanding strikers. He was so important to Brazil during USA, always a threat, tremendous around the penalty box, and it's a pity that the likes of Romario and Bebeto are not here tonight.
Well, we have Edmundo, we have Savio, the number 21 on the right of your picture, and of course little Juninho, who was so impressive in the Umbro Cup when Brazil, without Romario and Bebeto, certainly looked very good in that particular tournament. They hope to get better here. Patience is the message from Zagallo to the fans that have come here tonight, and not as many from Brazil. We're very close to the Brazilian border here in Rivera. Not as many as the organisers of this tournament hoped, but they've certainly upped the atmosphere from the earlier match played here between Colombia and Ecuador. And it is Brazil in those wonderful, meaningful yellow shirts, preparing to start their second game of this group, this difficult group really for Colombia and Peru and Ecuador to match the standards of the world champions. But it is remarkable that Brazil are looking for a piece of history in this tournament. They've won the Copa America only 4 times, and on each occasion in their own country, so they've never won it outside Brazil. And given all those World Cup glories, that really is quite extraordinary. One of the problems has been getting enough preparation time for this tournament, and they've fallen foul of some difficulties again this year. The Sao Paulo Championships are going on at the moment, and that has meant that Mario Zagallo hasn't had full access to players from that part of Brazil. 1 or 2 who would have been involved, like the goalkeeper Zetti, who played in the Umbro Cup games in England last month. So Brazil very strong favourites here, but Peru are a determined and developing outfit. Here's Kati after a little surge by Pinillos. Dunga gets it away. Juninho, brought down by Rodriguez. The referee here from Paraguay wastes no time in producing the game's first yellow card.
Well, it's quite clear what his intentions were. Juninho went away with him without any problem, showed great pace. I think he's become one of the most exciting players there is in Brazil at the moment. Here he shows individual skill, tremendous acceleration to get away from his marker. Now you see him hack to the floor, which certainly justifies a yellow card.
Ronald Dahl, the number 4, who scored the crucial goal against Ecuador. For all their potential in free play, it took a set piece to win their last international. Nicely executed. Juninho corner, Jorginho flick, Ronald Dahl header. And that came just after Ecuador had a player sent off, and it was only 16 minutes from time. So Brazil know there's room for improvement here, but they're so adept at playing tournaments. They've won so many tournaments, but as I say, never to win the South American Championship outside their own country. That's something they'd like to put right here in Uruguay over the next 10 days. Roberto Carlos, who, like Juninho, drew so many plaudits from the European observers. Carranza seems to have a different and more defensive role, the number 22 for Peru, than we saw him on the left-hand side of midfield against Colombia. But just to put the tradition between these two countries into some perspective, in all internationals, not just Copa America games, There have been 33 between Peru and Brazil, and Peru have won just 3 of them. This is Zinho, World Cup winner, of course. And Peru, in trying to be strong here, are going to be clearly robust defensively. But if you concede free kicks to Brazilians in and around the penalty area, well, that's inviting trouble. Juninho, of course, scored at Wembley his first senior goal for Brazil. He takes it here. Dunga, so adept at picking up the pieces in midfield. Aldair wanting to get it forward quickly to Jorginho, who will always make those runs willingly down the right-hand side. Edmundo. Well, it was a probing run from a player who was singled out for criticism by Mario Zagallo after the game against Ecuador for being too greedy and not helping his teammates. He got fed up with them, they got fed up with him. There have been some words in the dressing room, but Edmundo here looking unselfish.
That was a strong, determined run, and he's a little bit unfortunate with the cross.
Jorginho loitering by the near post. Remember, he flicked it on for that crucial goal for Ronald Dao. Couldn't quite do it that time. Savio. Zinho impeded, but the advantage played by the referee. Zinho kept going. Look at the number of Peruvians around the ball. And in the end, Juninho hasn't got too much weight to throw around of his own. Was happy just to knock it out of play to snuff out possibly a Peruvian break. Trevor.
I wouldn't think Peru would want to give away too many corners tonight, because if that's anything to go by, they're certainly going to be a threat, because that's the type of ball. Zinho with his left foot, in-swinging corner to that near post with pace. Only needs a little flick. It's so difficult to deal with.
Edmundo's ball through for Savio. Well, the whistle had gone.
Well, we can see whether it was offside or not. Well, that's tight, isn't it? The linesman put his flag up. But I was very impressed by the finish. Savio, he didn't know whether he was offside. He put it in the back of the net like every striker should do in those situations. Very calm finish. Just touch and go whether it was offside.
But no goal for Brazil, but already we've seen here a brisk beginning from them. As Trevor was saying, winning isn't enough for their fans. They need to be seen to win with their colourful style, and a lot of hard work, of course, goes into building situations of strength to play from. But Savio came on for Tulio in the first game, had a couple of good shots at goal, earned his team a penalty, a pretty fortunate one, which, when justice was possibly done, Edmundo's shot was very well saved from the penalty spot. Here's Edmundo here at full pace. Flag goes up. Hold of the ball in the mind of the linesman across the line. But Peru expecting a tough night here, and the early signs are they might get one. Dunga, Savio, lovely control. Dulanto was able to get to him in the end without conceding a free kick.
The control was so good, it's so tight. I'm not sure whether it was a free kick. I think the referee was correct on that situation. Certainly looking for the free kick, because as we know, the Brazilians are so dangerous from that situation. I think Juninho would have relished that position.
Well, they do fight each other for the right to take those free kicks, but the free kick here goes to Peru, trying to get themselves back on the world map, really. Palacios moves away from it. Good tackle by Rodriguez, and the second time, Palacios again. Well, there's no one there really to attack the cross, but almost a mistake by Jorginho that very nearly let in Carti. Del Solar is Olivares. Carranza. Cesar Sampaio, Brazil's number 5, the holding midfield player, able to play tonight despite having to go off early against Ecuador with a head injury. He's a pretty tough character. I don't think there were too many doubts that he'd be telling Mario Zagallo that he was ready if required, doing the job that Mauro Silva did so effectively in the World Cup campaign. One or two of the Brazilians starting the game with gloves, temperature dropping. It's been a pretty pleasant day. Temperatures up as high as 18 degrees. When you're used to the sunshine, a couple of weeks winter work in Uruguay can be a bit demanding for those who don't like the cold. Baroni giving away the free kick. Zinho. Now Edmundo. Dunga, who's always got terrific range in his passing, on from Roberto Carlos. This is Savio. Savio plays for the famous Rio club, Flamengo, where of course he's vying for places with Romario and Edmundo. Juninho to take the corner. This was the situation that brought Brazil their only goal of the tournament so far. Got some pushing spotted. Edmundo, who's a very fiery character, as many of you will know, saying that maybe he was being trodden on, an attempt to keep him under wraps at the set piece. But it's Peru's ball, and they've got through the first 10 minutes unscathed.
Yes, I was wondering if the Peru manager, Miguel Company, would change tactics tonight, with it being Brazil. I thought there may have been an indication of a change of tactics when he trained behind closed doors yesterday. But it appears that it's the same tactics.
Foul by Dunga. Pinillos. Palacios. Now Del Solar. And in the end, the goalkeeper, Dida, who's very much a rookie at this level, had to make sure that he wasn't caught out here by a cross-come shot.
Well, I think Dida may have expected a little chip to the back post. I don't think he expected a shot, but I think he's entitled to catch that ball.
So corner to Peru. Dulanto, the number 5, has come up for it. Palacios will take it. Didn't get as far as the goalkeeper. Edmundo. Picked off by Rodriguez. Cesar Sampaio in there to win the ball, does just that. Savio looking for Edmundo's run. Olivares is the defender. Cut out by the head of Carranza. Pace on the break from Brazil, having been defending at a corner. Juninho with the change of pace. Carranza keeping his eye on the ball to volley it away. Headed back by Dunga. Roldao. Like Cesar Sampaio here, plays in Japan's J-League, which has of course a very strong Brazilian influence. Including now Dunga and Zinho as well, although there's some talk that Zinho may well be moving to Spain. At the time of year when there's so much transfer gossip, it's hard to sort out rumour from fact.
Yes, in fact, there are 5 of tonight's team who are playing in the Japanese league, which is, considering it's only a newly formed league, is rather surprising. At the end of last World Cup, one of the stars of the winning team in USA, just leave it there for a second, was Leonardo, and he was one of the first ones to go there. He was a player that impressed me immensely during the World Cup. For me, he was the outstanding left back, along with Maldini. I actually made an inquiry for him, but a little bit too late, just missed the boat. But when you think of all the players who are playing throughout Europe, we talk about the great Italian league and the Spanish league, players like Asprilla, Batistuta, Balbo, some of the stars of this World Cup, stars of this tournament I should say. It's rather surprising that we got 5 of this team who are playing in Japan.
I think it tells you something about the relative wages there compared to domestically in Brazil. Roberto Carlos, faced with the Palmeiras, may well be the next to move, well, I would think maybe to Europe rather more than the J-League. Sampaio. Here's Juninho. Talento saw that coming, but then case of too many cooks for a moment for the Peruvians. Baroni. Palacios. Baroni still chasing. Mopped up by Aldair. Well, they've tried hard to force the pace here, Brazil. Savio had the ball in the net. The goal disallowed for offside. Roberto Carlos with the cross. We talked when we saw Peru against Colombia about the inconsistencies of the Peruvian goalkeeper Miranda. He will need, you feel, to be at his best tonight. Dunga. Referee helping Peru. Brazilian fans, as you'd expect, didn't like that one bit.
Whilst we're briefly on the subject of transfers, Martin, I was a little surprised that Santos, who's not in this squad, decided to leave Fiorentina and go to Ajax for a relatively small fee of just over 2 million. When you consider some of the prices that Premiership managers are having to pay in England at the moment, I think it represents a reasonable sort of purchase at 2 million.
Yes, that's Marcio Santos, who was, of course, a major figure in the World Cup win last year.
And he's going to a team, of course, who had just won the European Cup.
Here's Savio. Pass Carranza. Edmundo. Well, he had to move the ball quickly to try and get his shot in. Just allowed Peru enough time to shut the door in his face. Jorginho, who's got a damaged left index finger, broken against Ecuador. Juninho! Goalkeeper fumbles and is able to get there before Juninho followed in.
That was good play once again from Juninho. Good little dribble, strong shot. Keeper gets down well and saves, but powerful shot. What a good little player he is.
Well, he plays for Sao Paulo. He was telling us when he was in England that he's going to sign a new contract there despite all the interest. He's very grateful to Sao Paulo for what they've done for him, which was nice to hear. And he's young enough at 22 to maybe sign for another year or two and still maybe just fill out a little bit as well for playing outside Brazil later on in his career. But plenty of clubs would take him now. He's seeing plenty of the ball as well. Dunga. And a free kick, helping out a situation where Jorginho and Dunga looked as though they got in each other's way. No foul this time as Edmundo hits the deck.
He plays in that little area, doesn't he, just behind the front two. It's an area that I think only the best players are given the role to play. Players like Cantona and Bergkamp, Juninho just come onto the scene. If you can play, it's a great little role to play in. It's a problem for teams who are playing against you because you don't know whether to push one of the defenders out, whether the midfield player should come back and mark. He just plays in between, and it's so difficult for the opposition to pick him up.
Aldair, glanced on cleverly by Edmundo for the willing Roberto Carlos. Savio asked very much to be at the sharp end of things.
He's another player I like the look of. He's only been playing 18 minutes, but he's already done one or two good things as Savio. He's playing with a number 21 on his back, and that's his age. Just 21 years of age. What a future he must have in the game.
Well, they regarded him as the find of the 1994 national championships in Brazil. Zinho. And he's come in tonight for the top scorer in those championships, Tulio. The Peru, who've looked to a new generation of young talent to try and get out of the doldrums, working very hard at the moment to stop Brazil overrunning them. Edmundo and Miranda, annoyed with the defenders for not making the challenge first of all. The ball did just dip on him as he went for the save.
Yes, I would also think Carlos would be a little bit annoyed there, because he's come up in support, made the overlap. I felt that Edmundo should have released him just there. He's elected to come inside. Fair enough, it's a decent shot, but Carlos made a good position. He should have just slipped it through to him.
Juninho's corner, and Ronaldao climbing unfairly. The squarely made strong man at the back. And look at Edmundo there. Well, he's obviously out to make amends for what happened to him in the first game when he was criticised, as I was saying, from within the Brazilian camp, and that criticism made public. He's chased across to get the ball and get the game restarted, making up for lost time, really, having got back into the Brazilian side, left out of the World Cup squad because of his unreliable temperament. Unreliable, that's an understatement. He's not called the animal for nothing. He'll argue with opponents, with referees, with his own teammates, and television crews have been in his line of attack as well.
And of course, with the competition that they've got at the moment up front, he's got to play well, because one bad game and you're out of this team. Only recently Tulio scored 2 goals against Poland, and he's been omitted tonight.
And there's Ronaldo, of course, hailed as the new Pelé, who scored at Wembley. He came on as a substitute against Ecuador. He's still only 18, of course. But they're still looking, you sense, for the right combination to carry them through this tournament, as the rest of the side is pretty solid and regular in its composition.
When you look around at some of these front players, feature of their play, and I think it's common with most great players, is this change of pace. In the midfield there, Juninho and Zinho both have got this, and up front, Edmundo and Savio, both very, very quick players. Certainly helps.
And they're certainly trying to use that injection of speed to really get Brazil going here, but they're finding out that Peru, who've been soft touches at times in the past, maybe not so tonight. Baroni has been playing for Porto under Bobby Robson in Portugal, mainly, in fact totally, in the league side as a substitute. But he's certainly regarded as the senior Peruvian striker in this tournament. Whether he'll get to see too much of the ball tonight remains to be seen. Dunga guiding it forward nicely. Cesar Sampaio in a slightly more advanced position than usual. Well, Roberto Carlos loves to drive on. Dunga, Zinho, quite the elevation. Dunga again. Roberto Carlos, the deflection helping the goalkeeper, taking it away from Edmundo, but he was striving to get there in keeping with his performance over the first half of the first half. Here's Baroni, tracked by Ronald Dow. This is one of the better playing surfaces in this tournament, and it's been protected. Brazil were allowed one training session on it before the tournament began, and they only got that as a special case, which is sometimes the way with them, but not since. Juninho, elusive and electrifying again. It's a bad throw from Miranda, but he got away with it. Roberto Carlos couldn't quite hook it quickly back towards the Peruvian goal. Throw by Roberto Carlos. Cesar Sampaio. Dunga. Offside. Dunga and Jorginho in particular, they play together so often. They have a telepathic understanding.
Well, the idea was there, wasn't it? Just a little bit too early. He made his run, but considering his age, Martin, he's now in his 30s. Still likes to get forward, still got a great deal of pace, still one of the outstanding fullbacks.
And prepared to take the knock then, probably well aware that the goalkeeper was coming, but trying to do something here, maybe not even directly for himself, but for Edmundo, who was alongside him and in his line of vision, more so than the goalkeeper. Well, he's been in the wars, Jorginho. He's got this broken finger from the previous game. Now temporarily, he hopes, he has to be sidelined here in game number 2 for Brazil in Group B. They were in the same group as Peru 2 years ago, and Peru won that group. Brazil finished second, and the match between them finished 0-0.
Peru have done well there, holding a good line just outside the penalty box. Catching Jorginho, I think it was Edmundo, both offside.
Savio, who likes to drift to the left-hand side. Bowled over by Rodriguez, who has been booked and is walking the tightrope at the moment. He was late.
Yes, he was late, but I think that his momentum made it look worse than what it really was. He was going at such speed, he couldn't help but fall to the floor.
Roberto Carlos. Juninho. He gets it back from Edmundo. This is Pinillos. To wedge it forward. Del Solar against Colombia in a game where Peru had a greater share of the ball in midfield. Del Solar had at times a really aristocratic touch, pulling the strings in there. Hasn't been able to get on the ball enough in this game. Brazil push forward again. Roberto Carlos. And Juninho really in at the sharp end that time. He's covering a lot of ground. And he's posing problems aplenty for the Peruvians. Zinho. And again, Cesar Sampaio.
Just a word about the role that he's playing in there, Martin, just behind the front two. I think he interprets the role extremely well. I think there are at times a tendency, you know, when his fellow midfield players have got the ball, or a defender, to come in, always receive the ball to feet. But what I'd like to see, and he's just done it there, is to try and get in at the back of defenders. it's important that if you're playing in that position to vary your game.
A few more Brazilians you feel here tonight for the opening game. Quinhos lobbing it into the centre. Rivera, as we've mentioned before, very close to the border with Brazil. Juninho again. Edmundo was hoping for it to be really cut back towards the edge of the area, but Juninho really only saw Savio and couldn't find him.
But he's so positive, isn't he, when he gets the ball? He's always looking to try and beat a player. He beats players as easy as any player there is playing today in world football.
And this is his first year as an international. He made his international debut on his 22nd birthday in February. So you do feel, for all the polish that we're seeing from him, there is even more to come. Dunga, a little overconfident on the edge of the area. Del Solar maybe caught in two minds. In the end, it was neither a shot nor a pass from the Peruvian captain.
Most players today who are playing are good athletes. The fitness levels are extremely good, and it becomes second nature to players to try and close their opponents down. But when you have a player like Juninho who continually puts a player out the game, it's very, very difficult to counteract that.
Aldair. Kept in by the left-sided Quinhos. Carti. Squeezing it back to Del Solar onto Olivares. Now Carti not pressed the second time, but turning into trouble. And it's Juninho again. Roberto Carlos. Juninho finding space at will, really. Edmundo, past Carranza. Referee had a good look. His view was slightly masked, I think, but he's given the corner. Miranda bellowing the instructions. The Brazilian rhythms coming from all parts of the stadium here. Juninho takes. Roberto Carlos, free kick to Brazil, well within range. A positive challenge by Palacios, never really within range for his tackle.
I would think this is more likely to be Carlos from this range. Perhaps a little bit too far out for Juninho, but certainly not too far for Carlos. He's got a wicked left foot on him, and I think he fancies his chances from this sort of distance.
One or two gaps in that wall that have been plugged now, but they'll need to stay tight. So many options available to Brazilians. Roberto Carlos bangs it goalwards, went for power, parried by Miranda. Danger not over yet. Aldair curves it in. Roberto Carlos again, fainted to shoot that time. Juninho, Carlos kept running. Oh. Well, the goalkeeper stuck out an arm, and he was glad now that he did. It's a corner.
It was a nonchalant save, wasn't it, from Miranda? But a good save. You could have expected that. Did he mean this?
Well, it's just one of those, get it in the right area, wasn't it? And if the right area includes the back of the net.
Certainly quick reactions from Miranda, because he couldn't have expected that. I don't think anyone did.
Juninho. Edmundo. Offside. Roberto Carlos came to England in 1992 and was a non-playing substitute in that match just before the European Championships at Wembley. Gary Lineker wasted a penalty and missed out on a place in history. He failed to equal Bobby Charlton's record, but Roberto Carlos was just almost on the periphery then. But he was good enough to be in that squad, and now certainly, 3 years on, definitely good enough to be in the team. Here he is, the number 6 we're talking about.
Was he in the World Cup squad?
No. Branco.
Yes, he replaced Leonardo, of course, when he was sent off, didn't he?
Yes, they were the two who had the left-sided beat. Here's Baroni. Palacios. Palacios for Peru! Well, coming in was Carti. And Brazil could have had egg on their faces here.
Well, it's a good little dribble from Palacios. I don't know if he meant to screw that across the goal. I think there he should have been going for goal himself. It's in a situation here where he should be driving that across the keeper. Well, that's a scare for Brazil. That's the first one they've had. Because really up until now, it's been all one-way traffic. Peru have been working extremely hard, haven't really threatened in front of goal, working hard basically just to try and stay in the game.
Well, there's a yellow card for Del Solar. He caught Savio in the face. I'm not sure whether he intended to do that. The referee believed there was some intent. Roberto Carlos teasing Carranza. Oh, bit of showboating there by Miranda, but it stuck. And they don't always, if you look back on his previous international appearances.
No, he wasn't able to hold the free kick from Carlos, but on this occasion, the cross coming away from him doesn't present too many problems. That's good handling. It certainly gives confidence to a back four when you see your keeper coming for it like that and catching it cleanly.
Well, the matches come thick and fast for you here from the Copa America on Sky Sports. Tonight, 11:35, the United States, who made a good start against Chile, they played Bolivia, followed by Argentina against Chile. Plenty to talk about regarding Argentina with Batistuta and Balbo at the sharp end of their attack. Maybe an attack good enough to carry Argentina to a third successive victory in the Copa America, with us in 91 and 93. Dulanto. Everyone had come back out though for Peru.
Not been too impressed with the clearances, the quick clearances I should say, from some of the keepers in this World Cup. You've seen one or two keepers trying to throw the ball out quickly and giving possession away. There you saw Dida trying to kick the ball quickly up front to one of his strikers, but he also gives it away.
Juninho rarely gives it away. He finds Roberto Carlos here. Really did suit the defenders, but Zinho and Jorginho, Edmundo, carried by Dulanto. Dunga. And ball by Rodriguez. Dunga taking the free kick straight away. Jorginho that time just couldn't cushion it as well as he has been doing. Good strong work by Baroni. Make sure Peru retain possession. Del Solar, Palacios, who scored from about that range, coming in from the left against Colombia. And the confidence that he got from that goal was evident when he skated into the penalty area a couple of minutes ago. And my impression, Trevor, was that he was shooting for the far post, but he just didn't hit it true. And hooked it really away from its intended target. And there wasn't much chance for the following up player then, Carti.
He should have attempted the same type of shot that he did against Aguita. The one that you said swerved 10 yards.
You say I said it, but I don't remember saying it. But if your memory's very good, Trevor, so I bow to your attention to detail. It swerved a lot. I think we've all agreed on that. Here's Juninho. We all agree about him as well. That's Savio on his good left foot. Roberto Carlos was attracted to that position as well. Roberto Carlos with the cross. Miranda not too convincing with the pat away. Jorginho is coming in to battle for it, and he's won it back and then slipped at the crucial moment.
And once again, Edmundo goes to retrieve the ball, gets it back in play quickly.
He wants a good behaviour medal, doesn't he?
That's good play from Jorginho. He's rather unfortunate, just don't see it, but as he's about to put the cross in, he slips.
Brazil, 22 internationals unbeaten, 18 wins and 4 draws, 20 months since they last lost. That was in Cologne to Germany. It's the measure of the task facing Peru here, looking for a rare win over their illustrious fellow South Americans. What they have given is a sense of purpose not associated with Peruvian international football in recent times. Indeed, for some good time now. Miranda's limping. Somebody catch him in there. Edmundo trying to look totally innocent. Referee telling Miranda to get on with it. Juninho's corner. Aldair trying to locate it. Out by Dulanto, nicely taken on the turn by Del Solar. Palacios. Brazil continue to dominate the possession. Juninho for Savio. It's gone behind. Goal kick.
They just need that breakthrough, don't they?
Well, I was just thinking that the style is there, the desire is there. What they don't have, and it's too much physical power up front. You might say they don't need it with the elusive quality of the players in the attacking areas for Brazil. Palacios, who certainly looked elusive at times, just deflects, fortunately, for the Brazilian defenders and goalkeeper Dida. Good running by Savio. The support from Zinho, who's a good continuity player. Juninho, but it's all being played in front of Peru at the moment. I'll be happy with that. Jorginho trying to get a better angle for the approach work. Juninho is there again. So many touches on the ball in this first half. Ronaldo gets a second bite at it.
As we know, goals change the course of a game, and I think if the early one that Savio had scored had not been ruled out, I think we would have seen a different Brazil. At the moment they're playing, certainly I feel, just within themselves, doing enough, passing it around, good control, created 1 or 2 chances, but you'd expect a little bit more from a team of this calibre.
Roberto Carlos trying to supply it. That's Dunga. Well, the ball went across the penalty area. Edmundo didn't want to have a swing on it on his left foot. Half cleared by Peru, and Dunga did take a swipe on his left side and came close. And it's led to a corner. Ronaldo pretty well marked by Carty.
The opening corner, the opening corner from Zinho from the opposite side caused plenty of problems, and whilst they've had quite a few corners since, they've all been from the opposite side, and Janino has swung them in, 1 or 2 near post, that one there to the far post, but they haven't caused too many problems, in all fairness.
They haven't got too many big players, have they? They've got Ronald Dow, they've got Aldair, and it was, as I mentioned earlier, Jorginho who flicked on for that goal, the only goal Brazil have scored so far in the tournament against Ecuador, and it took them 74 minutes of that first game to get that. I think they played better in the first half here than they did in the first half against Ecuador, but again, they're approaching half-time with a 0 alongside their name as far as the scoreline is concerned. But let's also credit the way Peru have set about their task. They've not been overawed by it.
Yes, they've worked extremely hard. Closed the ball down well. They've only had the one chance, that was from Palacios. It was certainly a reasonable chance. But you do feel that if Brazil were to get the opening goal, it could go on then to quite a good win. But at the moment, whilst it stays 0-0, Peru will continue to work hard, closing it down, making it difficult for the opposition.
Brazil's final game is, of course, against Colombia, who haven't impressed as yet, but have rather sidled their way to 4 points. Now, Brazil wouldn't want to take the risk of coming in with 4 points of their own. Although with third place likely to, certainly 2 of the 3 groups, a third place qualifier there will be. So the danger of elimination isn't too great. We go into stoppage time, there's very little of that. Brazil have certainly worked hard here. As Trevor Francis said, had they had the goal by Savio allowed when it was ruled out for offside early in the piece, we might have seen a more vintage first half. They've tried hard. Juninho has been outstanding with his individual contribution, but a pat on the back for Peru, who've competed very well, and at half-time they can be proud in their dressing room. But here in Rivera, it's Brazil 0, Peru 0.
Yes, and Martin Tyler perhaps has used the most perfect word to describe this first half: competitive. Lots to talk about. Our guests in a moment. Getting ready to go in the second half here at Rivera, but just a reminder about what's coming later today on Sky Sports. Again, it's a double header, this time in Group C. United States against Bolivia. That's at 11:05 our time, and then a scheduled start at Paysandú once more for Argentina against Chile immediately following that one. We're all set to go then in the second half. Brazil and Peru tied, no goals at half-time. Commentary, Trevor Francis and Martin Tyler.
Well, here in Rivera, we've got a player called Rivera on for Peru for the second half, one of 2 changes the Peruvian coach Miguel Company has made. The other seeing the reintroduction of Jorge Soto, the younger of the 2 brothers, wearing number 2. It was a double change at half-time in their opening game against Colombia that bore fruit for Peru. They played particularly well in the second half. And it has been a feature, Trevor and I have mentioned it before, that coaches now, with the luxury of being able to make 3 substitutions, are prepared to make 2 of them at half-time and leave 1 for injuries for later on. Number 16 is Rivera. He's a pacey attacking player, and you're getting a little indication of that now. Taking on Ronald Dow. But he lost his footing and then felt some of Ronald Dow's bulk on the way down. Didn't hear the referee's whistle, so got up and got on with it.
Well, the sub's certainly quick, and you wouldn't say Ronald Dow's slow either, is he? For such a big man. Terrific change of pace.
Informa asistencial médica la asistencia médica integral oficial.
I think where Peru have got to be careful, and we've seen it on so many occasions in this tournament, is that when a team loses a player, they go down to 10 men. It's changed the course of the game. And I think at the moment, whilst they've got 11 men, they're going to continue to work hard to try and stop at all costs Brazil from creating. And it's imperative that they stay with the 11 men. I felt that in that first period, they're a little bit fortunate that Rodriguez, who had been booked, was fortunate to stay on the field. He committed another bad foul, and then Dunga attempted to flick the ball over his head. Rodriguez blatantly handled the ball, could have been sent off.
And now he's been taken off with obviously that in mind.
Yes, I was just about to say that obviously the manager has taken that into consideration. He knows the importance of staying with 11 men.
Del Solar. Here's Rivera. Roberto Carlos in very crisply. Julio Rivera has come on for Herman Kati. Dulanto. Nicely taken down by the experienced Jose Soto. Now, can Brazil quickly pick up the tempo that they showed for so much of the first half? First half which ended in frustration for them, in that a lot of good attacking play didn't produce a goal. Juninho, who did more than most in the attacking cause. Cesar Sampaio. Savio. Again, Peru with plenty of players back as a defensive screen. Aldair likely to find a way through in that manner. Palacios, who showed us with just one splendid burst in the first half the type of player that he could really develop into. He's only 21. Olivares. Tricking Jorginho. Percy Olivares. Carrying the fight forward for Peru, the danger against Brazil. If you do get sucked into a little bit of overconfidence and overcommit, they've certainly got the ability to pick you off on the break. Just ask England about that.
You just mentioned Palacios, and I think he's probably Peru's best player. I'd be very interested to see him playing in the Brazil team, because I think he's good enough to play in the side.
That's quite a compliment. Jorginho with a quick free kick. Savio wanting to cross it all the while with his left foot. And there wasn't quite the urgency of others attacking the ball in the middle.
Well, it's a great run from the young lad Savio, but a real tame ending. He didn't have too many options, I suppose, because Edmundo's not made any movement at all. He's just stayed at the back post. As you can see, there's 3 defenders there, not one Brazilian in the picture.
And that's different from what we saw in the first half, when everyone was buzzing. A bit slow to get going since the restart here in Rivera, which is a town of a population of around 85,000 people. And maybe a tenth of that population have come here tonight, supported of course by the Brazilians who crossed the border into Uruguay and taken advantage of a ticket deal tonight. There's 2 for the price of 1, and you get 2 games. That's for half-price rate. Cesar Sampaio. Aldair. Jorginho, but Peru continue to press well. Carranza, who's been switched to play in midfield, which was where we saw him in the match against Colombia. Palacios, and here's the right-sided player in the second half, substitute Jorge Soto. Del Solar. Well, there are no inhibitions here from Peru, making Brazil do a bit of chasing with some keep ball of their own. Del Solar. Olivares trying to do for Peru what Roberto Carlos does for Brazil. Olivares was a bit late there and Dunga didn't like it. Juninho. There's the acceleration. There's the quality in the pass. This is Edmundo. And the foul by Carranza.
Once again, that was great play from Juninho. He's picked the ball up, only one intention, that's to make as much ground as he possibly can at pace. He's gone past 3 players within 5 seconds. Released Edmundo. He gets in a position where he's one-on-one, wants to come inside. He's fouled, and it's a dangerous position this for Peru to defend against.
We're 8 minutes into the second half. Brazil still searching for an opening goal. 3 in the wall, Miranda Watts. And here comes Roberto Carlos for Brazil. Oh, it hit the post! Or did it just skate the outside of it and thud into the hoardings? It was masked by the run across the face of the goalkeeper.
Clever free kick this, hit with pace to the far post. I think it's Edmundo, isn't it, who comes in, deceives the keeper, Miranda. There, just steps over it, hits the post.
And skims away to safety, and Brazil come very close. Juninho, that might just encourage them to reach the standards that they did for much of the first half, but they've been a bit slow to address in the second half in these early minutes. All coming from the way Juninho orchestrated the counter-attack that led to the free kick being earned. And Roberto Carlos not really masking his intentions about what he was going to do, but Edmundo getting across in the line of the shot and making it difficult for the goalkeeper. Ronald Dow with not an easy clearance, headed on by Juninho, slightly misjudged by Dulanto. Savio in pursuit. Jose Soto gets it back to Miranda. The last 2 Copa America meetings between these 2 countries have been goalless draws, to suggest that maybe playing against Brazil does bring the best out of Peru. But here's Savio looking to work an opening. There's been no soft pedaling from Brazil, knowing that qualification after winning the opening game is almost assured. It'd be a complete shock to the whole world if they were to then lose 2 games in a row. But firepower without Romario, without Bebeto, is not forthcoming. Whether Mario Zagallo will want to effect a change. He's got Tulio to bring back on, of course, who he left out of the starting lineup. He began the game against Ecuador. He's got Ronaldo. Tulio indeed saying yesterday that, well, if you don't score when you play up front, you expect that questions might be asked, and I don't think he was too surprised to be dropped. And he meant that not just for himself, but for all the forward players. You're judged by your goals. And while there's tournaments going on. Romario is making plenty of noise. Back in Rio, he's been saying he might retire. He doesn't want to do the endurance training. He says he might play on if he's allowed just to do work in the penalty area. Doesn't believe that long distance running does his game any good. Jorginho has been criticised for that, Romario, by none other than the great Zico. Well, there's quite a debate going on in and around the Flamengo club about Mr. Romario. Controversial figure, but no doubt about it, a great goal scorer.
Seems to have his problems wherever he plays, doesn't he? Because if I remember rightly, in Barcelona, with Johan Cruyff, he had 1 or 2 problems. Fell out with him, and I think as a result of that, made a quick return to his country.
They'd like to have him in the penalty area now, Brazil, I'm sure. Jorginho takes, and Aldair was particularly annoyed having come up for the free kick.
Well, that's not the quality of crosses we come to expect from Brazil. Very poor cross there from Jorginho.
Del Solar, poked forward by Dulanto, 2 Brazilians going for the same ball. But Romario wouldn't be the first player to say that he didn't want to train, Trevor, would he?
No, there's a lot of players who don't particularly relish the idea of training, but today, unless you're fit, as I said before, there is no substitute for not being fit. If you can't run, you can't play.
Well, there's still a possibility here that Peru might cause a major upset. Not with attempted crosses like that. Juninho picked off by Carranza, making the goalkeeper work. And Cesar Sampaio, who's been around for a good few years, just trying to organise everyone and get their concentration back. It's not been so good in the second half. Straight down the slot for the goalkeeper, though, the shot. Aldair. Edmundo. Here's Dunga. Edmundo. Dunga asked to find the key to the door again. Cesar Sampaio. Roberto Carlos Savio. But there's a crispness about Peru's defending, and there's a growing belief about their play on the break. Del Solar, they switched it from right to left. Pinillos. And again, Del Solar. This is Rivera. And Baroni fighting for the right to meet the cross with Aldair, but losing the battle then.
Yes, I think it took everyone by surprise, that cross from Rivera. He's got a bit of pace, and you'd expect him to try and get past Carlos, get to the byline, which isn't easy because Carlos is quick himself, a good defender. He didn't need to get past anyone, he just put it into the box, and it was a big header from Aldair, an important header.
We told you about Romario and what he's doing, but Beto fell out of favour with Zagallo when he chose to stay with his club. When the Umbro Cup was on, he was picked for the squad to play in England, but didn't show. Those were the 2 forwards who led the world a merry dance in the United States a year ago. I feel if Brazil are going to make this piece of history and win the South American Championship outside Brazil, some of the forwards on the roster here have got to come alive in this game and in the subsequent ones. Zinho, Savio can't get there. They don't have the look of Batistuta and Balbo about them up front.
No, it's quite obvious that Brazil are struggling at this moment. They're looking for a spark, they're looking for somebody in the side to ignite them, and it's not coming. Maybe they need the manager on the sidelines, Zagallo, to give them that little bit of a lift. Perhaps an introduction of a substitute, maybe Ronaldo, that would give the team a little bit of a spark. That's what's needed.
Well, Mario Zagallo, who's well into his 60s now, and he's kept on at a job really that has a fair amount of health risk, because he feels he really hasn't had the credit that he deserves for his part in Brazilian football. One way or another, he's been involved in all the 4 World Cup triumphs, twice as a player, once as the head coach in 1970, and then he was the right-hand man to Carlos Alberto Pereira in the United States last year. And yet, as I said earlier in the program, a lot of Brazilian fans still favour Tele Santana. You can't point to a pedigree like that of Zagallo. Jorginho has been a good servant to whichever coach has been in charge of the Brazilian national team for some years now. Jorginho offside.
Just going back to your point, Martin, about the 2 front players here and comparing them to Balbo and Batistuta. The one thing you feel about Batistuta and Balbo is that their records are excellent. Despite the fact that Argentina, or the 2 players themselves, are not necessarily playing well, they weren't necessarily playing well, you always felt they were capable of scoring. At the moment, with Savio and Edmundo, you don't know where a goal is going to come from.
And the main focal point of their thrust in the first half, Juninho, hasn't quite been able to be such an effective force so far in the second half. Though he was behind the move that led to the free kick that led to Roberto Carlos hitting the post.
And that brings me back, of course, to Romario, because he's the type of player that can be so frustrating. Lazy, can be playing poorly, but he can score a goal. He knows how to stick the ball in the back of the net. And I think you have to put up with players at times like that. If you have 10 other players around who are working extremely hard, and you have a player like Romario who's perhaps not doing quite enough, if he scores, okay, you accept that.
Rivera confronting Ronald Dow, allowing the big defender to stretch out a leg, and Roberto Carlos to take it on at pace. To Olivares in the right place. Edmundo. Jorginho giving him an angle down the right-hand side. Juninho going into the middle.
Once again, very, very poor cross. They did get 3 players in the box there. Savio, Edmundo and Juninho all in the box waiting for the cross. But Jorginho fails to deliver. And that's been really typical of the second half.
Yes, we've noticed throughout this tournament so far that the teams have often matched each other, cancelled each other out in the first half, but the games have opened up and sharpened up in the second half. But it hasn't been the case here in Rivera so far this evening. The injured player, Percy Olivares, will be checked closely by those Peruvian medical men there, because 2 substitutes have been used. There is a 3rd permitted, but there's still 25 minutes to go. Quick recovery from Olivares. Referee just being told to look across. As he was concentrating on giving Peru a free kick. Pinillos to take it. And it wasn't a very good free kick, but it went a long way. And Del Solar trying his luck from long range.
I remember in my days at Nottingham Forest when Brian Clough was the manager, he was never happy making substitutions. Obviously, if a player was injured, he couldn't continue, substitute had to be made, but tactically, seldom did he do it. And you just wonder if Zagallo comes in the same category. The team now have been playing for 67 minutes. First half, they played reasonably well. They haven't reached any levels in the second half. In fact, by Brazilian standards, it's been inadequate, their performance. And they certainly need a lift from somewhere, and perhaps, as we said, Tulio, Ronaldo coming off the bench will give the team a lift, but he hasn't made any substitution, and I can't quite understand his thinking.
It was Baroni leaving a foot in on Dunga. Brazil have the ball, and the referee lets the game go on. Whether he'll take some action against Baroni when play stops, so we must wait and see. Dunga not too severely damaged, as you saw. Edmundo. Here's Del Solar. The pacey Palacios and the sturdy Ronaldao. Still the scorer of Brazil's only goal in this competition. That came after 74 minutes of the opening game. We're approaching that sort of time now tonight. Whether it will be a happy time again for the Brazilians. Rivera. Now Pinillos. Jorginho come infield with him. He was left on his backside for a moment. Juninho. Zinho, who's sometimes criticised within Brazil for being a bit predictable in his play. He's got getting on for 50 caps now, so he must be doing something right. Roberto Carlos, they better not let him shoot. He only needs half a second and half a yard. It's been quite a rivalry between these two countries down the years. Although Peru have been on the receiving end most of the time. They played a World Cup quarter-final in 1970 when Peru were boasting players like Cubillas, who of course starred throughout the 70s. Peru looked a very good unit in that tournament, but Brazil were too strong for them. And in 1978 it was Peru's failure that stopped Brazil getting to the World Cup final. You might recall, you World Cup historians, that Argentina needed to beat Peru 4-0 to get into the final in the league system that was in place then, and they won 6-0. There were a lot of complaints from Brazil. They thought Peru threw in the towel, even suggestions that money had changed hands. I was commentating on that game, and I must say Argentina were absolutely electrifying in an electrifying atmosphere, and Peru, well, it was a bridge too far for them. But Brazil were furious, and Argentina, of course, got to the final and won the World Cup. It was 1978. So there'll be a few Brazilians who remember that when Brazil take the field against Peru.
You mentioned Cubillas, and it was the following year, whilst I was in America with Detroit Express, I actually played against him. It was down in Florida with Fort Lauderdale. And in the forward line with Cubillas was George Best.
Not bad.
Useful forward line.
Still see Cubillas, shouldn't mention him with the Scottish viewers around. Of course, he did terrible damage to Scotland in those 78 World Cup finals, but we still see him around. He does television work on the circuit for a Latin American channel in the United States. Charming fella, great player. Dunga. We're digging back into the past really at the moment, because the present here is not too fulfilling for Brazil. Zinho trying to change that, got past Rivera. Delanto beating Edmundo to the cross from Roberto Carlos.
See, I think the striker there is entitled to get in front of the defender. A natural goal scorer, someone like Romero, I keep mentioning, would have been there in front of him, getting his body in front of it, keeping possession of the ball in the penalty box where he's so dangerous. There was no reaction there at all from Edmundo.
Keeping loose at the other end, not been a terribly busy evening for Dida. But Peru continue to stand their corner. And at 0-0, anything remains possible. This is Baroni, he's got away here. Oh, well, he saw support coming from the right-hand side from Palacios when he might have gone on himself, Baroni. But Brazil have a warning shot across the bows there.
Yes, I think he did the right thing. It's just unfortunate the pass wasn't played correctly. Aldair took off a good position. That's Palacios again there. He's not afraid to have a shot.
Juninho. Well, playing tournaments is a demanding exercise. Winning tournaments, Brazil know all about that. Juninho. Here's Savio. And at times you have to reserve your very best to last. Dunga. Brazil hinted at what they can achieve in the Copa America in the first half, but they've looked more vulnerable in the second. And the crowd here beginning to feel perhaps that Brazil wouldn't mind another Copa America goalless draw against Peru. Edmundo, with his own personal place at stake, wouldn't subscribe to that view.
Well, Peru are working really hard for this point because they realise that with already 1 point attained against Colombia, they must fancy their chances in the last match against Ecuador, and that could possibly give them 5 points, and that would certainly put pressure on Colombia and Brazil, and it would make that match a very, very interesting game if this scoreline stays 0-0.
Juninho. Savio seemed to head it more towards, it's Dunga's shot that's deflected, headed it more back across goal and towards goal. The busy action in the Copa America continues later today. United States against Bolivia, followed by another look at Argentina, who must be well fancied to see off Chile. But here we are in Group B. Brazil unable to shake off the dogged pursuit of a point by Peru. Juninho. Savio. Now Cesar Sampaio. Jorginho. All the while there is of course the potential of a flash of genius. That might have been handballed by Zinho. The referee didn't think it was intentional, if he saw it at all. Peru would have been, I think, very angry if that had led to a goal and broken their resistance. Hoisted long by Jorginho. Roberto Carlos makes it his. Dunga. And Roberto Carlos is in here, being tugged back, and a penalty against Jorge Soto. Brazil get the break that they wanted. It's come late again. Roberto Carlos with this sense of adventure. It carried him into the penalty area and he was pulled back. Trevor.
Well, once again, we spoke all night about change of pace. You see it there from Carlos. Gets in front of the defender, and wins the penalty.
And of course Brazil had a penalty against Ecuador, and Edmundo failed to score from it. Not a huge amount of contact there, but he felt it, and he felt there would be a reward for going down. It's more the referee's angle on it. Brazil, if there was a doubt, certainly got the benefit of it. Miranda's protested.
Doesn't look like Edmundo's taken this one.
Well, it's a crucial kick for Brazil. This to give them a lead, and they've had to work so hard for it. Second penalty of the tournament for Brazil, and it's Zinho. Zinho scores. And at last the Peruvian resistance is broken. Zinho keeping his nerve, and Miranda totally going the wrong way. Brazil 1, Peru 0.
Well, you can't say they haven't deserved it, but you couldn't quite see where it was going to come from. Perhaps a free kick from Carlos, perhaps a penalty, and that's the way it's worked out. No doubt there was a penalty, but they'll feel a little bit hard done by, I would think, Peru, because there wasn't too much danger there. Now they've got to sort of come out and try and look for the equaliser. And it may, of course, benefit Brazil now, because with the front two, having a little bit of pace, Savio and Edmundo, they haven't done too much up to now, but they may benefit in the remaining 12 minutes of the game.
Well, you saw the reaction from one or two Brazilian players who went and jumped on Roberto Carlos.
Relief, wasn't it?
Relief, yes. They were already beginning to sense the words of the critics. The goalkeeper's dropped this, and the challenge from Rivera, but the whistle had gone. Aldair telling the referee to use a card, and I must say that's something on a football pitch I detest seeing, one professional telling or an opponent being picked out like that. The referee make up his own mind. Was smacked in by Palacios, but it's not going to count because of that challenge. And the goalkeeper's big enough to look after himself, you feel. But Brazil now can do it all at a much more relaxed tempo. Peru did come from behind against Colombia, but they've got to dig very, very deep here.
But despite being 1-0 in the lead, I would still think it's a little bit of a concern to Zagallo that in 2 games now they haven't scored. Well, certainly neither of the front players have scored. 2-0 in the first game. Now the front two here, Savio and Edmundo, have failed to score.
Well, they've scored from a set piece and a penalty.
That's right.
The 2 goals in the tournament so far. But they're winning the games, and that will be Zagallo's answer if they see this last 10 minutes through.
But I think he's a man who likes to play the game in the correct manner and likes to win with style.
Jorginho. Dunga. Edmundo. All credit to Zinho for stepping up when the pressure was on. Mindful that Brazil had wasted the penalty against Ecuador. His 6th goal for Brazil, coming in his 46th appearance. 2 2 of those 6, of course, superbly struck. You'll probably recall in England against Japan at Goodison Park recently. And he hit the penalty with the same sort of conviction. Dunga. Jorginho slips Olivares. It's a bit more like it. Oh, Edmundo must get it here. He slid it into the corner just about. So that's a great weight off his shoulders. And Brazil are certainly home and dry against Peru now.
Well, that's the best cross that Jorginho's put in all evening. He would have been disappointed there that neither of his strikers there, Savio or Edmundo, attacked the ball in the fashion that they should have done. But they've got a break here, because as the ball comes in, that's where they should be attacking it now. And that's poor defending. It falls to Edmundo. And this is an unusual goal. He just flicked out and it's in the back of the net.
Well, he was setting himself for it, had just got enough power to squeeze it in beyond the despairing lunge of Miranda. And Brazil have scored a goal from free play, but it would hardly be described as a classic.
Well, when the ball fell to Edmundo, I really thought he was going to have one touch and then smash the ball in the roof of the net. He's had 1-2 touches and the ball's just bobbed over the line, just escapes the outstretched arms of Miranda.
And that's Roberto Carlos. It strikes the frame of the goal for the second time, the same post, but this time from a very different part of the pitch. Peru, belatedly, you feel, want to get another attacker on in the shape of Ramirez. Look at this, though. Banging back off the post into play.
Well, first half he had a shot like that, and I wasn't sure whether he meant it, but on this occasion I think he did mean that. He's driven the ball with power and pace to that near post. And it's only been the upright that's stopped the ball from going into the back of the net, because I think Miranda was certainly beaten.
Edmundo.
That's clever play. Kept possession well, nice little skill, but then gives it away.
Del Solar. Ramirez bundled over. Del Solar. And Baroni impeded, so it's going to be another free kick to Peru. Cesar Sampaio just miscalculating there. And the angle of it allows Rivera to get right in by the goalkeeper. Peru striving to become first team to score against Brazil in the tournament. Probably forward by Jorge Soto, whose introduction for the second half hasn't been particularly happy.
Cesar Sampaio's done a good job for the team tonight. Hasn't been too involved in the picture, but done a very intelligent job, just playing in from the back four, just screening the back four. Not a spectacular player, but I would think that his teammates, players like Ronaldao and Alder at the centre of the defence, really appreciate the work that he does.
Yes, he would have been a contender for the World Cup squad, but he got injured at the wrong time. Mauro Silva did that particular function fabulously, one of the Brazilian performers in the United States. course, he's been injured this season. Well, it's suddenly been taken away from Peru, who did well to get to half-time at 0-0, but weren't threatened at all with any menace of that stature for half an hour of the second half, and then the penalty goes against them, and their world in this particular match has caved in.
Yes, in the first 45 minutes, Brazil played extremely well, yet failed to score. In the second half, haven't played particularly well, they've scored 2 goals. As they say so often, it's all about sticking that ball in the back of the net, and on paper at the moment, 2-0 looks a very, very good result.
Well, of course, any sort of win would have taken them back above Colombia, who stumbled past Ecuador earlier here tonight. It's a booking for Carranza. It's his second of the tournament, so he will be suspended from Peru's final game against Ecuador. And really jumping into Dunga. Jorginho. Just a little bit of doubt as to what the referee was going to give then. He's given the corner, quick thinking by Jorginho to go and receive it. Good challenge by Roldao. Jorginho's right in there.
That's the first short corner they've played all evening. They've concentrated on that driven ball into the near post, 1 or 2 to the back post. But it was only quick thinking by Jorginho that provided that short corner.
Yes, at a time where 1 or 2 lesser players might switch off mentally, the game effectively over. Jorginho.
They're so important, aren't they, the 2 fullbacks, this Brazilian team? They're very alert, like to get forward and join in. And so important these days that you have fullbacks who they're asked to do everything, aren't they? First of all, they must defend, but it's so important now that they must come forward and join in, become part of the attack. And in Carlos on the left-hand side and Jorginho on the right-hand side, they've certainly got 2 very, very good attacking fullbacks.
Savio. Here's Zinho. It'll be interesting to see whether Mario Zagallo experiments a little bit with his selection for the 3rd game, with 6 points safely in the bag. In the Umbro Cup, you might recall, he barely changed the team at all. And obviously believes in continuity, which is a much underestimated quality in football.
Yes, Peru would expect Brazil, of course, against Colombia to put up a performance, because they've only got the 1 point, Peru, and I'm sure they've got every chance of beating Ecuador and hopefully scoring a few goals that may give them a chance of finishing in 2nd place.
Absolutely right. Well, it's often the case in the group games when really even in the World Cup so few teams are eliminated after a high proportion of matches, and then the real cut and thrust starts in the knockout phase.
But as we saw in the Umbro Cup, once you're winning it becomes a habit, and I think they're in that habit at the moment. Despite not playing as well as they can, they always feel that they can win.
Well, the unbeaten run goes on 23 games now, 19 victories. Del Solar in stoppage time. Peru have fought gamely here. They've certainly not been outclassed, but they have been beaten. The turning point The penalty, another late show from Brazil, who scored late to beat Ecuador in their opening game. They had to wait a long time here for a penalty converted by Zinho, and then they embroidered the victory with a second rolled in by Edmundo, and they haven't conceded a goal. Peru put up a creditable fight, but Brazil have played 2-1-2 in the 1995 Copa America.
And thanks to Trevor Francis and to Martin Tyler. I hope very much we've kept you entertained into the small hours of the morning. Brazil on course then. They're through to the second phase, and you have a feeling we'll be hearing more of them.